Kang Joo-hyuk was one of South Korea's biggest celebrities, but after an incident he fell into poverty and locked himself in a dark basement afraid to socialize. Kang thought his life was ruined until he received an unexpected delivery. Thanks to an unidentified cell phone, he now receives calls from the future. The story is about our main character named Kang Joo-hyuk. His success began in childhood as a child actor. His first award was at the age of 11. From a very early age, the protagonist knew popularity and fame. He continued in the industry and tried to escape the image of a child actor. People commented a lot about his talent on the internet, and the press praised him. As a teenager, he acted in many successful soap operas. His films accumulated more than 10 million viewers. With so much talent, the protagonist also did several shows and the public always followed him. The paparazzi did not leave his side. He also opened a famous franchise. This is Kang's successful trajectory. For 13 years since his debut, he has maintained the position of South Korea's main star, but it all ended one day when he finally managed to inaugurate his franchise. A girl approached and asked to take a picture. Kang accepted without thinking twice. Years later, the protagonist would say that that was the day he was thrown away. The scene changes to the current moment in Kang's life. He is sitting on the floor of the dark room watching. On television, the journalist talks about the fallen national actor named Kang Joo-hyuk who disappeared. He couldn't take this matter anymore and turned off the TV. It's been a while since he entered this room and hid from the public eye. More precisely, about 5 years have passed since the steakhouse incident. The light did not enter the house and the protagonist lost track of time. He did not know if it was night or day. The news said that he disappeared because he was living a good and rich life. These headlines could not be more wrong. Kang has lost everything and now lives in poverty. He doesn't focus on television and wonders how it ended up like this. To better understand, the scene changes to the past when the protagonist was accused of fraud. Reporters lined up to understand the situation of the national star, then asked if he admits to the accusations of stock manipulation. One of the journalists asks if he has nothing to say about the Joo-hyuk barbecue franchisees being suffering huge losses. Kang is bothered by those questions, but the journalist insists on saying that small business owners who struggle to survive every day are at a loss because of him. The protagonist shouted that he was not involved in this matter. After that day, the press published several headlines with Kang's face. Some articles said that he plummeted hundreds of billions in market capitalization. Others said he was caught using narcotics. At this moment, the protagonist reads a headline about his own public trial of some scandalous cases. This time there were no charges that included manipulation and gambling. He realizes that it was no use being acquitted because people still believe that he did all these things. Suddenly, a noise at the door catches his attention. The person on the other end yells that it's delivery. It's strange because Kang doesn't remember ordering anything, so he thinks it might be a trap by the reporters. Just thinking about it makes the boy scared. He decides to wait a little until the delivery man leaves. When everything is silent, Kang opens a crack in the door and takes the box. He locks the door again and breathes a sigh of relief. In the package, there was a message that said he was going to sell his future. The protagonist looks around the package and realizes that there is no sender. He opened the box even though he was suspicious and ended up finding a cell phone. At first, he thought it was a camera, but looking better, he noticed that it was just an old and used phone. Suddenly, the cell phone starts to make a noise. Kang doesn't recognize the number that is calling and answers anyway. On the other end of the line, a voice asks if he is afraid to go out on the street because his life is ruined. From now on, he has no reason to worry. The protagonist hangs up the call before the voice finishes speaking. He thinks this is just a voice phishing that is going too far. Phishing is basically an attempt to defraud his cards and important documents. Kang throws his cell phone on the couch, thinking that someone just wants to steal it, and goes back to watching TV. The presenter welcomes guest Cha Sung-bin. The protagonist quickly recognizes the guy from the FEM photos. At that moment, the television puts the number for people to send their affections to the actor. Kang realizes that it is the same number he just called. Suddenly, the strange phone rings again with the same number. The protagonist looks scared. The number also keeps appearing on television, and below there are some messages saying that you can't miss the opportunity to call. Kang accepts the call, and the voice on the other end calls him by name, then says that he needs to take advantage of the opportunity. The protagonist is surprised to hear his name. The voice promises a chance to change his life with a 7-day free service, then asks to press 1 if he wants to keep listening or 2 to reject. The protagonist is sure this is another one of those voice phishing scams. He decides to keep listening to what kind of madness the scammers are going to say. The voice thanks him for signing up for the free service and tells him to enjoy it for 7 days from now. The future time setting will be set by them during the free service period. The protagonist must use this time to change his life through a special experience. Kang does not understand where this will lead. The voice asks him to select the keyword of the item he wants to hear. Then 3 different times appear. The protagonist is sure it's a scam, but wants to see how far these stupid people will go, so he chooses the time of 6 a.m. The voice says that at 6 o'clock the actor Cha Sung-bin will pass away in a mysterious traffic accident. The police initially considered it to be an ordinary accident, but then found a farewell note and the case was closed. The protagonist is frozen and asks if Sung would really have the courage to do this with his own life. The actor has skyrocketed popularity on the last day. There is no reason to do this. The protagonist thinks this information is completely crazy. He puts his cell phone on silent and says he won't pay attention. The phone falls under the couch. Kang puts the curry to heat up for 3 minutes and wonders how an actor like him can end such a miserable life. There is still a little of his fortune left, but the protagonist is sure it will be over when the money is gone. 3 minutes later, the curry is ready and Kang picks up the dish. A flashback invades his head and he remembers a girl. She was worried about the fraud news that had come out, so she asked if Kang had done it. He never answered. Now he wonders if it would have made a difference to answer. He thinks the girl would continue to believe the news. Kang feels like crying when he remembers her. He immediately wonders if he could monetize if he cried on YouTube saying it was the cry of a lost celebrity. The next day arrives. Kang sleeps comfortably on the couch when the news reports a very sad news about an incident that occurred this morning around 6 o'clock. The protagonist wakes up to the noise of the TV and turns to the other side trying to sleep again. The news says that unfortunately the victim was the actor Cha Sung-bin. The accident was fatal. Kang jumps off the couch. The reporter says that the police initially judged it as an accident, but they found a farewell note left by the actor. There are rumors that Cha Sung was not well lately and preferred to put an end to the suffering. The woman shows the accident site and says that the professionals have already taken care of the body. Kang can't get the call out of his head. He runs to the computer and searches for the name of Cha Sung-bin. The latest news is of his accident. Kang yells that it can't be. Suddenly a noise is heard in the room. He looks back and realizes that it was the cell phone that put it on silent. It seems that that voice phishing really is willing to sell the future. The noise gets louder and louder and the protagonist starts looking for the cell phone. He rummages through everything and finally remembers to look under the couch. The number is the same. The protagonist is afraid of what he will hear. Even so, he answers the call. The voice says he has 6 days left of the free service period and repeats the same information. Kang presses the number 1 and the voice gives 2 time options. The protagonist begins to tremble, realizing that it is the same pattern as yesterday. He selected 8:20 in the morning. The voice asks if Kang found the actor's ending horrible and says that this is nothing compared to the ending that the protagonist will have. His death will be much more miserable. The news will talk about the end of the coup actor. The voice adds that he will end up alone with a rope around his neck in the bathroom of the apartment. But for now, the boy should not worry because they will change his future. So 8:20 today will be his first step towards a reversal of fortune. Kang looks at the crack in the door and then looks at the clock. Sweat drips from his face, realizing that it is already 8:20. After that, the call ends. The protagonist tries to call the same number, but is informed that the phone he is trying to call has been disconnected by the person on the other end of the line. Kang uses the computer this time to search for the call number, but no results were found. He starts to think that this is not just a voice phishing scam. The guy is completely desperate, but tries to convince himself that this is not about predicting the future or anything like that. So he should not think too much. The best thing to do in this case is to wait to find out on the next call if it is a scam or not. A few hours later, the protagonist was still waiting for the next call, but it was already 6:23 p.m. and nothing happened. Suddenly, the number rings. The protagonist answers quickly, and the voice says that there are 5 days left of his free service, then asks him to choose a time from the alternatives. Kang chose 7:30 at night because it was closer. This time the prediction is about football, a game between Milan and Benetoro. Everyone expects Milan to win, but the player Alonso will receive a red card and a penalty, contrary to the expectations of the fans who did not expect Benetoro to win. After this information, the call ends. The protagonist researches about the Milan team on the computer and remembers that the last time he saw him he was in Serie A. The result of the survey shows that the game is scheduled for tomorrow. The next day, the TV broadcasts scenes from the Interfinale Stadium, where the match between Milan and Benetoro is about to start. The fans are excited for the easy victory of Milan. It is an important game because it can decide a place in the Champions League. The protagonist sits in front of the TV to watch, but he was so sleepy that he could not resist a nap. Suddenly, the referee shouts that Onzo is sent off. Kang soon wakes up with the noise. The referee takes the red card and shows it to the player. The protagonist realizes that the third call was also right. The commentator says that this turnaround is surprising. Milan went through difficulties in the second half and ended up suffering a penalty kick. The game ends with a 1-0 victory for Benetoro. Kang feels like he's going crazy. This score wasn't something easy to imagine. Now that voice phishing seems real. The phone rings once again. The voice says that he has 4 days left of the free service, and again asks him to choose a time from the alternatives. Kang chose the earliest, 2:30 in the morning. The voice says that the final confrontation between Vanny and Tottenham will take place. This time it is Premier League. The protagonist wastes no time and starts to prepare the sweaters. The voice informs that everyone is confident that Tottenham will win. Kang takes the last remaining money. Finally, the voice fishing reveals that Vanny will score the goal of the victory in the 38th minute of the second half, then wishes him good luck. Kang runs down the stairs of the building and arrives outside. He still feels a little afraid to walk the streets, but he needs to make sure that the prediction is right. He feels that this is the chance of his life. The protagonist disguised himself by wearing a cap and baggy clothes, but he couldn't hide his fear of being recognized and looks scared at passersby. Suddenly, a couple looks at him and asks if he's not that actor who used narcotics. Some students heard this and approached the protagonist. In a matter of seconds, Kang was surrounded and passersby started taking pictures. He has a terrible memory of the past, from when he was accused of being a scammer. The protagonist covers his ears and screams to himself that this is not real. The couple from before wonders if the boy is okay. It turns out that all this was nothing more than Kang's imagination. He was not recognized by anyone. The traumatic event was still present in his thoughts. He realizes that he needs to act right before he has these hallucinations again. The protagonist runs towards the first convenience store he sees open and enters. He arrives tired from running around and checks if there are customers in the place. The attendant is scared, thinking it's a robbery, but Kang says he wants to place a sports bet. He's betting everything that's left of his fortune, approximately 900,000 won. The attendant looks incredulous. Kang trembles, thinking that he was recognized, but in fact the guy thought that the main character was a newbie in the lottery business, so he warns that he can only buy up to 100,000 won per store. The man points to the marking label and says that the boy can fill it out. Kang obeys. The attendant says that it is not good to bet as much as a beginner because he may regret it later. The protagonist agrees and reminds that to place the bet he has to guess the result of at least 2 games, but he only knows the result of Tottenham and Vanny. The next games in the sequence are Huddersfield and Wolverhampton. The protagonist wanted to bet the 900,000 won, but for that he will have to place bets of 30,000 3 times, in 10 different stores. Kang feels confident and says that he will definitely do it. The clerk watches from afar, worried. The protagonist finishes filling out the tag and thanks the man for his good work. He leaves the store and runs to his next goal. As Kang feels a little more comfortable among passersby, he visits several shops to place bets. Hours later, Kang returns home, so tired that he falls on the couch. He placed bets for 2 games. The first is already sure that he is right because of the connection. If all goes well, the protagonist calculates that he will win 5 million won. The next day arrives. Kang wakes up and the first thing he remembers is to check the results. The computer shows Vanny's victory. Now it remains to be seen if Huddersfield won too. Huddersfield beat Wolverhampton, even with the low chances. Just as the protagonist thought, at that moment Kang multiplies the chances of Huddersfield and Vanny's victory, then multiply by the amount of the bet. The protagonist falls back with the result. He expected him to win 2.5 million, but actually won 12 million. After this news, the boy ran to the bathroom. He washed his face to make sure it wasn't a dream. Kang feels for the first time in 5 years that it was worth leaving home. Suddenly, the mysterious phone rings in the living room, and he is forced to run out of the bathroom. The protagonist stumbles over everything that is in the way. He reaches for the phone, and the voice says that there are 3 days left. Kang is quick and chooses the time 7 at night among the alternatives. The protagonist already checks that the next game is between Jeju Unis and John Buck, but he doesn't want to spend money because today is Saturday. The bank doesn't work to withdraw money. Suddenly, he finds himself thinking about the first prediction, about the death of actor Sha Sung-bin, and it makes him feel bad. At that moment, the voice says that he made a great choice because 7:40 the lottery draw will take place. Kang smiles, imagining the eternal reign of money, providing the numbers would be enough to transform his life. The protagonist doesn't feel safe to leave the house again, but he finally understands what this voice fishing is trying to do. He wants to force the protagonist to go out and face his fears. Thinking of which, Kang runs out of the apartment. He calls the first taxi he finds and gets in. The voice asks the boy to go to the lottery store in Yongin, then buy 5 lottery tickets. He obeyed and passed the location to the driver. There is just over 1 hour left for the draw. Kang was in a hurry, because it takes about 40 to 50 minutes to get to Yongin. While he is doing nothing, he decides to search for the lottery prize. Simply, the boy is faced with 2.5 billion. Kang widens his eyes, scared by the amount of number, and yells at the driver to hurry. He even promises to pay the fine. The man obeys and they arrive at the destination quickly. Kang hands over the money and tells him to keep the change. The driver is about to say something when the main character leaves the car. The boy runs towards the lottery that the voice fishing spoke. He finally finds it and stops for a while to catch his breath. Now all that remains is to buy the ticket. He walks towards the entrance when he sees a man leaving with some tickets in his hand. At that moment, it is 7:38. Kang knows that his fortune may be in the hand of that guy, so he decides he has to get it before the man realizes it. The protagonist starts the chase when he recognizes another man, named Kim Jin-gu. Kang turns his attention to the guy with the tickets. Suddenly, a strong wind knocks one of the tickets out of the man's pocket. The protagonist sees this as divine help. He yells that he has to get it before Jin-gu. Kang stretches out his hand. At that moment, a light comes on in his direction. The light has been closed and the protagonist has not noticed. The huge truck manages to slow down and the driver starts cursing. He angrily asks if Kang is planning to ruin someone's life. The man with glasses approaches asking if everything is okay. The protagonist can only think about his ticket and is happy when he realizes that no one took it. He runs towards the ticket and then leaves. Kang to rest in an alley and asks if this experience of almost being run over is also part of the future. He looks at the numbers on the ticket and says that now he can bet. A while later, the protagonist returns home. He was sure he could bet more if he hadn't spent the change on the taxi. At least he bought 3 tickets that should give $7.56 billion in return. The protagonist takes the phone and scans the QR code. In the same second, according to the lottery website, congratulates him for winning the prize in second place. Kang was sure he would come first. He asked scared if his choice to take that ticket changed the future. If his decision really changed the future, it means that there are other possibilities. The call said that Jin-gu would help him in the lottery. But that didn't happen because the man was distracted by his accident. In addition, the protagonist didn't buy on time and bought 2 more tickets to guarantee the victory. Finally, Kang returned the original lottery to the owner. This may have changed the prediction of the future. Anyway, the boy is not sad because he won second place and will be able to claim the prize on Monday. A few days pass and Kang goes to the bank. The attendant asks for a moment and takes his card with her. Kang decided to change the SIM card and install the digital one to improve security. At that moment, the television presents the new national star. Kang looks towards the TV and sees something familiar. The presenter welcomes Hyan and says he hopes he will join the Fengency. The protagonist recognizes this name because Hyan had excellent management and helped him at the time of the franchise. He had a strong reputation for strict self-management. Now Kang wonders why Hyan would go to Fenf, which doesn't even have a clean image. At that moment, the woman returns and hands over her issued passbook and card. Kang looks at the tray and sees 2 candies. The attendant says that she doesn't believe it's him. The protagonist immediately notices that he has been recognized. The woman says that she is happy to see him well because she is a big fan. The protagonist tries to hide his face while she says that she is very excited to find her idol. The woman says that it was very difficult when that problem arose, but now she is happy to see that he looks fine. Kang asks if she doesn't remember seeing his face on all the news for having committed all kinds of crimes. The woman replies that she knows he didn't do it. It was confirmed that he was innocent, and even so the media still crucified him. A subtle smile appears on the protagonist's face. He thought he would never find someone who believed him. But thinking about it, there must be other people who know of his innocence. But he doesn't because he built walls and ignored any support. Kang thought that when he looked at the gentle face of that attendant. He thanks him for everything and starts to leave the bank. The woman also says goodbye, saying that she hopes to see him again on the screen. As soon as the protagonist arrives outside, he checks how much money he has. A week ago, his entire fortune was 980,000 won. Now he has 98 million won. The protagonist had an idea after he received those kind sweets from the attendant. So he says he already knows what the next choice is. Kang straightens his hat and looks ahead. Several screens announce Hyan's national transfer. The whole entertainment market is agitated to buy him, but everyone thinks that the transfer to Fenf is a done deal. The protagonist checks the Fenf Entertainment stock price where Hyan is going and realizes that they are fine. People are looking forward to Han's transfer. Kang hears passersby talking about Shin Yora and Hyun being in the same company. They say that they have already bought Fenf shares today. It seems that FNF's market capitalization has skyrocketed to 75 billion won. Thanks to the new hire, the protagonist is sure that Fenf is the right bet at the moment, but his choice is another. Kang presses a button on the screen and a message says that the transaction has been completed. This message has been repeated many times because the protagonist has made several purchases. He has bought shares in FNF biggest rival, called Big Z Entertainment. The scene changes to a little later in the beauty salon. The girls who are taking care of their hair notice a familiar person. One of them comments that this guy looks like the actor Kang. The haircut is finished, and the protagonist looks in the mirror. He goes back to his previous appearance. The receptionist says that the total is 15,000 won and Kang hands over the card to pay. The television continues to follow in real time the transfer of the actor who has been stirring the internet all day. They give the most unexpected news possible. At the last second, Hyan unexpectedly chose the Big Z company instead of Enf, causing a significant drop in stock prices. Everyone expected Hyan to be hired by Fenf, but suddenly the situation has reversed, and now some of the small investors are expected to suffer losses. The receptionist says that the guy who bought big shares of Big Z must have hit the jackpot. On Monday, the protagonist received the call from the voice phishing. That's when he learned that Hyun would choose Bigsy, so without thinking twice, Kang bought as many shares as he could from the company. Now the remaining period of the free service expires in one day. The protagonist realizes that he only has one chance. This means that he needs to ensure that the last information will change his life. The protagonist returns home and rests. That day the phone rings for the last time. The boy answers without wasting time. The voice asks him to select the time. Kang does this and the voice passes on the information. He screams in surprise, asking if it is really an accident. On the other end of the line, no one answers. The protagonist questions if everything will end like this. He holds his head, asking how he is going to use this last information. All he knows is about an accident. He asks if he was supposed to go save them, but no one answers. Kang lies on the couch saying that he is going to sleep because this accident has nothing to do with in. By him was 11:50 at night. The scene changes to bus 4450 leaving Myejeom station. A very drunk man named Sijin enters the bus complaining about being ignored. The voice phishing prediction showed that, because of Sijin's interference with the driver, the bus collided with a truck, resulting in the immediate death of 2 passengers and 5 others seriously injured. At that moment, the driver asks everyone to take their seats. Suddenly, a hand knocks on the bus door. The man opens the door and the protagonist gets in. He catches his breath and goes to the last seats of the bus. Currently, there are 7 passengers. He is not sure which of the 2 men is Sejun and decides to sit nearby in case something happens. The trip remains initially calm when suddenly the driver needs to slow down and Sejun ends up waking up. He yells at the man to drive properly. The driver apologizes and the guy doesn't calm down. He starts insulting everyone. Now the protagonist finds out who Sejun is. The man gets up and goes towards the driver, who asks Sejun to calm down and go back to his seat because it is too dangerous to stand on the bus. Kang thinks if it is not better to let this unpleasant guy simply pass away. At that moment, a female voice tries to calm down her Sanchi daughter, saying that everything will be fine. The protagonist realizes that he cannot stand still. At that moment, Sejun tries to interfere with the driver's direction. A physical fight intensifies between the two. The driver keeps saying that the guy shouldn't touch him because it could make him lose control of the bus. The next moment, the truck appears. The protagonist remembers that 2 passengers are unfortunately going to pass away. He fears that one of the people is the mother of the baby, then decides that he needs to intervene. Kang pushes Sejun away and yells at the driver to stop. The man obeys and an accident almost happens. The truck continues on its way without colliding with the bus. The protagonist realizes that he was just fine. The guy on the ground starts asking why he hit him. Kang just tells the driver that he is going to hand over Sejun to the police and asks to wait a while. The man agreed. Suddenly, Sejun grabs him by the collar. Kang soon creates a strategy to get out of this situation. He pretends that he is Sejun's longtime friend and says that he is very happy to meet him again. The drunk has no idea who the protagonist is, but Kang hugs him and says that it is good to meet the respected Sejun. The drunk man was unable to control his anger due to a sense of helplessness he felt. He cries as he is comforted by Kang. The protagonist leaves the bus with the drunk guy as if they were great friends. The next moment, he puts his foot halfway for Sejun to stumble and fall. The guy starts cursing, but Kang leaves him behind and keeps walking. He doesn't understand why the last call was to save someone. It definitely wouldn't change his life. Suddenly, the protagonist's thoughts are interrupted by a call. He didn't expect the voice phishing to contact him again. On the other side, the voice says that the conditions for a paid service have just been met, so he can be the owner of the paid service in 3 days. For this, it is necessary that he comes to the designated destination at 3 in the morning. The protagonist is confused and asks what paid service he is talking about. The voice repeats that to become the owner of the paid service, it is necessary to go to the designated destination at 3 in the morning. Finally, the voice demands that the protagonist prepare 10 million won before his visit. Kang thinks that the person on the other side is waiting for a fee for the information. At that moment, the protagonist feels that all his steps are being seen. After all, the request for 10 million was set for the day he can withdraw money from the bank. In addition, the new call happened after the resolution of the bus incident. The protagonist is sure that someone is watching him from some point of view. 3 days pass. At midnight, the protagonist receives a new package. The voice had asked him to take an umbrella. Kang feels that these guys are playing with him. The guy opens the package and finds a car key accompanied by a note with the location of the destination. In the end, he is asking him not to forget to take the 10 million. Kang leaves the building and finds a white car waiting for him. The boy gets excited and wonders who these men are. It seems that they have a lot of money. Before entering, the protagonist deposited the money they asked. The location was already marked on the car's GPS. So, Kang just selected the information that had already been placed. He says that he will finally discover the face hidden behind that mask, the true identity of whoever is behind the voice phishing. The protagonist accelerates the car towards the destination. Halfway through, a torrential rain begins to fall. The dashboard of the car warns that there are 3 minutes left to the destination. The protagonist is surprised and asks if there is anything in the middle of this nothingness. The GPS stops, and the notification warns that he has arrived at the designated destination. Kang looks curiously at the shed located in the middle of nowhere. He runs in the rain while cursing the voice pishing. The boy enters the apparently abandoned shed and follows the light. He ends up tripping over some things along the way and gets angry, then gets up and goes up to the second floor. But he hears a noise as soon as he goes up the stairs. Kang can't help but feel afraid. He looks around asking who is there. The protagonist finds a piece of wood and decides to take it with him in case something unexpected happens. He continues up the stairs and enters a room. Suddenly his eyes fall on a delivery box that is on the table. The protagonist leaves the wooden bat behind and opens the package. Now he has another cell phone and a new ticket. The note says that Kang has become the bronze owner of the paid service. The service starts from the moment he receives the phone. In addition, that white car that brought him here is a gift for him. The protagonist asks what a bronze owner is. Suddenly the new phone rings and Kang gets scared. He says it would be easier if he texted. The boy answers, and on the other end of the line the voice says that he will be able to access the paid bronze service 30 times. The protagonist is shocked. He doesn't have time to understand better why the voice tells him to choose a time. This time they have two alternatives that are not usual times. Kang wants to test what this means and chooses option 900. The new information is about a murder movie. Even though the production budget is low, the director of the film will attract more than 900,000 spectators. The protagonist understands this information, as if he wanted him to go back to being an actor. Going back to that crazy film industry is something that never crossed his mind. Suddenly the windows of the warehouse break and the glass flies everywhere. Kang fears that it is an attack and returns home. The next day he returns to the shed and finds nothing else there. It's as if it never existed. Kang looks scared, questioning how the shed he entered yesterday disappeared. On that day the protagonist hoped to reveal the true identity of the voice, but he couldn't. He found a restaurant near the city to rest his head. On television the journalist talks about the Seongcheon company, which revealed the effectiveness of its substance against terminal illnesses, and since then the stock price has risen. Thanks to voice phishing, the protagonist bought some shares, currently valued at 600 million. Kang simply skipped the information about the murder movie. He searched the internet if pre-production has already started, but he doesn't find anyone talking about the movie. Kang feels that even after 5 years, he is still not safe to return to acting. That's why he needs to find a person. At that moment, the waitress delivers her order. The person the protagonist was waiting for was her first manager, Koo Min-jae. Seems extremely annoyed that the protagonist has been missing for 5 years, and suddenly appears asking for help to take a look at the film industry. Chu crosses his arms, saying that he is no longer his manager. Kang defends himself by saying that he was not in a situation where he could contact him. Chu replies that he stood by him. Even when everyone turned their backs, it was 13 years of friendship. But the protagonist simply left without remembering him. Kang refers to Chu as his brother and says that's why he came to him. Chu was the first person he decided to meet after 5 years, as well as the first time they met 18 years ago. Chu has a flashback to that event, but he is still very angry and yells at the protagonist to stop this acting. Chu says that Kang only thinks about himself. The protagonist asks if he won't help. The manager devours all the dishes on the table and says he has nothing to help with. Everyone knows that there is nothing to gain from the movie Chuxel. Kang asks if the friend checked it out. Chu replies yes and learned that it was ruined. There are rumors that the project was cursed or something. As a result, all the investors fled. These rumors began to circulate after that supporting actor named Sung Bin passed away. He would be part of the cast. After the scandals, the director did nothing but drown himself in alcohol. The manager adds that the director is Sejin. His name came out in the media a few days ago because he caused a commotion on a bus and ended up in a detention center. The protagonist is incredulous when he realizes that almost all the information he received is linked to the movie Chuxol. Chu asks if he is planning to return to the screen. Kang replies no. This time he only thinks about trying to invest. Chu asks if he drank. Everyone knows that even for a small film the cost of B-level production is high. Kang asks what the production company is. The scene changes to a little later. The protagonist arrives at the production company he has known for a long time. He enters and finds the president, named Ki-rong. The man is not very happy with the invasion of his production company. A few minutes later they both sit down to talk and the director says he knows the protagonist has gone bankrupt, then questions if he is preparing for a comeback. Kang replies that he stopped it. Ryan yells that he doesn't believe he is wasting an 18-year career. The man confesses that he regretted turning his back on him. The protagonist says that he must prove that he is sorry and show the script of the movie Chuxol. Ryan asks how he knows this. A silence hangs over the two. The president assumes that he is thinking of returning to the screen, then delivers the script as the boy requested. Kang flips through the pages in complete silence. Ryan asks what he thought. He remembers that the protagonist has always had a good eye for projects and expects a positive response. Kang liked the script so much that if he were still an actor, he would definitely apply to film without hesitation. The only problem with the project is that it was written by a drunken garbage. The film should have a serious and determined director. It is impossible for hundreds of employees to get together to work with such a director, and in the end the film reaches 9 million viewers. This time voice phishing gave him a big job. The protagonist asks if the president is close to Sejin, and he answers yes, since college, but the director seems to be going through big problems. The man says that he tried to help his friend by buying a decent script and giving it to him, but things went wrong again. Kang yells asking what he did. The president gets scared and the protagonist asks if he bought this script. The guy confirms that he did and Kang questions if it wasn't Sejin who wrote it. The president says that it was actually written by someone else. The phishing information was that if the director filmed the movie that wrote the script, 9 million people would watch it, so the protagonist comes to the conclusion that the 800,000 he heard was if Sejin filmed it, resulting in a total failure. Kang soon asks how much profit a production company makes today. The president counts on his fingers and says approximately 20 billion. He asks why Kang is so interested. The protagonist hopes that the total revenue will be 100 billion if the production company's share is so large. But for that he would have to invest 5 billion in advance. The president says that this subject makes him depressed and asks to talk about something else. The man intends to order his favorite dish. Meanwhile, the protagonist is thinking of an actor who can make the investment. Maybe everything will work out if he finds the original writer of the script and gets him to film directly. It's a guaranteed audience of 9 million people. Kang quickly has an idea. He calls President Ryan and asks if there is a possibility of restarting the production of the film if he hires a good actor. The president is surprised by the question. He asks if he has anyone in mind. Kang replies that he is thinking of actor Jung-hoon. If he is hired, it is the guarantee of 10 million tickets sold. Jung-hoo is a standout actor that no one could have imagined. He is not just any major actor. Jung is the greatest actor in the industry. The scene changes to Jung arriving at a hotel. He is greeted by an employee of the place who apologizes for keeping him waiting. The man says he would have come faster if he knew it was him. Jung replies that it is no problem. Suddenly his phone rings and he walks away to answer. The actor is surprised to see the protagonist's name on the call. Jung and Kang have competed several times for the Best Actor award at the Golden Film Festival. The protagonist won them all. The scene changes to a bar. Jung is drinking with his friends. He remembers that until 5 years ago he was in Kang's shadow. 4 of those people who were drinking with Jung followed the protagonist, but abandoned him when the scandal arose and started to accompany Jung. The actor is excited to see the protagonist's face when he meets his old friends here. He even asks for a toast. The traitors toasted. A girl in a black suit named Jinju refused to toast and doesn't know why she was invited. Jung said he had something urgent to talk about, but so far he just drank. At that moment the door opens and Jung shouts that he is here. The 4 traitors are surprised by the appearance of the protagonist. Jinju also looks impressed. Jung feels that he got what he wanted. Kang understands why the actor wanted to set up a meeting so urgently. He thinks that Jung has not changed anything, but this is even better. The protagonist looks at his former friends and realizes that they are embarrassed. The woman in the white t-shirt lies, saying that she did not contact him because she was too busy abroad. Kyung says that everyone here has been very busy. Kwak says that he forgot to pay a visit and apologizes for that. The protagonist replies that it is understandable to be busy for 5 years. Suddenly he raises his hand to the table. Kwak thinks he will be beaten, but in fact Kang just wanted to get the bottle of drink. Jinju says that she tried to contact him several times and he avoided her. The protagonist drinks silently. The girl asks if the articles at that time were all true. Kang takes a deep breath and calls the girl by name, then asks if she saw the article saying that it wasn't him. Jinju replies that he shouldn't know that through an article. She wanted to hear it directly from him. Jung is happy thinking that the protagonist will be humiliating. He mentally talks that he made a great choice inviting Jinju. The protagonist looks at Jinju and has a flashback to when she went to him to find out about the headlines that came out. Jinju wanted him to deny the accusations, but the protagonist never answered her. At that moment he asks if she really wants to know. Jinju replies that it is important for her to hear an explanation. Kang says that she does not trust him. He is sure that the girl wants him to convince her that it did not happen. Jinju says that it is not that, she just hoped that he would be faithful to the people who were on his side. Kang replies that this is ridiculous, then picks up a grape and tells her to stop worrying about others. Jinju yells at him, and Kyung interferes. He asks the girl to calm down, because it seems that Kang came here to talk to Jung. Kwak calls his companion to leave the place. Kyung also takes Jinju outside. Jinju looks at the protagonist angrily for not explaining himself even after 5 years. Kang treated the girl that way because he didn't want her to be by his side. In fact, he just wants to protect her. Jung and Kang are finally alone. Jung asks what he wanted to say. The The protagonist is direct and says that he wanted to call him for a movie. The actor screams in surprise, then bursts into laughter like a madman and questions if the protagonist doesn't know his place. Jung calls him a failed loser who can't even be sold in a second-hand market. Kang doesn't think about returning those insults. He just asks if the actor wants to listen. Jung shows his middle finger while shouting, asking if he just came to talk this nonsense. The totally out-of-control guy approaches the protagonist and says that they are on different levels now. So if Kang needs help in the future, he can join his fan club. After saying this, the actor begins to leave the place, feeling that he humiliated his opponent. The protagonist finally breaks the silence and calmly says that when Gwang's film was cancelled, he bought the director a drink and the man got a little drunk. That day, Gwang showed a beautiful photo. Jung stops walking when he hears this. Then the protagonist says that the photo he saw on Gwang's cell phone was of Jung's beautiful face. Suddenly, the actor screams desperately, saying that it was just a casual drinking session. Kang replies that he knows, but asks if the guy really thinks that reporter Park will believe this. Jung paralyzes. The protagonist remembers that reporter Park was responsible for his ruin. The truth is that Kang didn't plan to find out about that photo. He just invited director Gwang to drink without ulterior motives, and the guy ended up talking too much. He showed a photo, but the protagonist was also drunk and the image seemed blurry, so he initially thought he was hallucinating, but then he realized that he wasn't. At that moment, Jung shouts angrily, asking what he's thinking. For some reason, the protagonist feels his body say that the guy in the photo is himself. Jung keeps asking what he wants, and the protagonist puts the script on the table. He mentions the movie again. Jung surprises himself, asking if he is really talking about a movie, and confesses that he thought it was a threat. Kang replies that it is a movie and a threat, but promises that he will deliver the photo he has of the actor if he makes this movie. Jung starts laughing and asks if the protagonist thinks he would fall for it. The actor was right, because it really is a bluff. The person in the photo in question is Kang, but the protagonist did not give up the idea of threatening Jung as if the photo was of the actor. The protagonist intended to shake Jung's mind with the suspicion that somewhere in this world there is an incriminating photo of him. The anxiety that something personal could leak at any moment will definitely disturb his mind. The protagonist was right. Jung starts screaming that this photo does not exist and questions if he thinks people will believe such a rumor. Kang uses his second strategy to convince Jung. He says that he is sure everyone will believe it. In the world of the industry, no one cares about anyone. They are hungry hyenas waiting for the national star to make a mistake, so it will not be difficult to convince them about the photo. Deep down, Jung knows that he can end up like Kang at any moment. The protagonist coldly asks if he wants to live like a failure too. This was the third step that Kang thought of to convince Jung. His strategy now was to cause fear. The protagonist gives 3 days for the actor to decide what he will do. The photo will be displayed. If he does not accept the offer, Kang adds that he will remember. Post in the fan club. After saying that he leaves, Jung holds his head, not knowing what to do. In front of him is the script left by the protagonist. Jung takes a look when suddenly Kang comes back. The guy gets scared and asks what the hell he wants. The protagonist replies that he is sure the actor will like the movie because he is good at choosing projects. Jung refers to him as a crazy guy. Kang leaves the place after having fulfilled all the steps to convince the actor. It was a little tiring at first, but he thinks it will be worth it. At that moment, the phone rings. This time the voice gives 4 alternatives and none of them is time. The protagonist selects the word wine. The voice says that the lead actress Jinju will be involved in an illegal narcotics scandal. Kang widens his eyes in fright. The next day he thinks about how he will free Jinju from the charges. According to the voice pitching, the police will receive a complaint from the owner of the party venue in Gangnam. There were many celebrities at the party, but only the wine that Jinju drank had illegal substantials. The test proved that it had hallucinogenic components, causing a huge social uproar. The protagonist spent all night researching Jinju's name and looking for something related to narcotics, but he didn't find anything. At that moment, he sees a website with all the information of the actress and realizes that she is now part of the company Bigsy. The protagonist finds it strange because he remembers that Fenf practically created Jinju since its debut. But for some reason she changed to Bigsy and never spoke the reason. Suddenly a memory invades Kang's head. He remembers that Hein also changed to Bigsy at the last minute and left Fenf. The 3 most well-known actors had scandals when they came between these 2 companies. The protagonist realizes that there is something bad going on because Jinju is the 3rd to leave Fenf and will now be accused of using narcotics. He's sure Jinju would never wear something like that. She fought a lot with him when she found out about his involvement with illegal things. Certainly the accusations were false, but Jinju got angry just thinking about the possibility of his friend wearing something like that. A few minutes later, the scene changes to the protagonist driving. He tells himself that he has to help Jinju. The protagonist thought about the possibility of telling her that he sees the future, but fears being called crazy. If an illegal narcotics scandal happens to Jinju, he will again be mentioned as the prime suspect. The protagonist also wants to save himself from this chaos. First, he decides to find out if the illegal substance was something allowed by Jinju. Kang then drove to the party site in Gangnam. The voice had said that everything would happen in the garden of the residence. The protagonist checks the information and picks up the phone to record the residence. When suddenly someone leaves the party site, he starts filming everything and feels that that man has a familiar face. Suddenly, the guy in the suit opens the trunk and takes a few bottles of wine. At the same time, Kang remembers the phishing information. The positive test for hallucinogenic components was only found in Jinju's wine. At that moment, the security guard feels that he is being watched and turns back. Kang jumps to the side trying to hide. The man doesn't see anyone and goes back to handling the wine bottles. The protagonist raises his cell phone to continue recording. The security guard takes a bag out of the trunk and returns to the residence. Kang manages to see the name of the wine that the man took and remembers something important. The one who reported it was the owner of the party venue, but it seems that he already knew that there would be narcotics in advance, and that's why he reported it to the police. The protagonist believes that this security guard knows something. Now just investigate. A few minutes pass. The security guard comes back to get something he forgot in the car. Kang continues recording. The man gets in the car and drives. The protagonist starts following him because he is not willing to let Jinju face the same accusations as him. A scandal like this is fatal for an actor's career. Even your friends and family doubt you. He fears that the same. It happens to Jinju, so he won't leave things like that. The protagonist says that there shouldn't be another scapegoat like him. At that moment, the security guard who was driving the blue car turns right and parks in front of a building. Kang is surprised when he realizes that it is the building of the Big Z Entertainment Company. He assumes that that security guard works here and Jinju's agency is supporting it. The security guard enters the building and the protagonist finds everything very suspicious. 1,000 possibilities go through his mind. Suddenly, the security guard's car starts again. Kang waits for the man to leave the building first. After that, the security guard gets into the car and the protagonist follows him again. So far, the man seems to have made 2 stops. One in a convenience store and the other in a journalistic company. Both must be related to the incident with Jinju. The problem now is the time that the incident will happen. The voice did not report the exact time. So the protagonist is concerned with securing evidence. It will be problematic if everything happens and there is no evidence against Big Z. Suddenly, the security guard's car stops in front of a new building. This time it's from the FINF agency. The protagonist is confused. It's as if the security guard is betraying his company. At that moment, the man gets out of the car and looks around to confirm that no one saw him. The FINF guards line up to receiving it. The protagonist realizes that guy is someone more important than a simple security guard. He gets distracted looking at the scene when suddenly someone knocks on the car window. Kang looks scared and the FINF guard warns that he can't park here. Kang apologizes and accelerates the car. Now he is sure that FINF and Big Z are connected. A little later that day, the scene changes to Jung's house. He can't forget the threat he suffered and has read the script thousands of times. The protagonist's words about choosing the projects well echo in his head. Jung knows he can't underestimate it. The script on the table is full of markings. It looks like the guy is going to accept the offer. Night comes and the protagonist continues on his goal. He calls manager Chu and asks if he recognizes any of these photos. The manager says yes. That man is not a security guard. His name is Jo Sung-min. He is now the leader of Big Z's PR team and seems to be quite influential there. The protagonist tells the manager to put the food aside and pay attention. The man yells that he is not his servant to take orders. Kang just replies that he will need him tonight. The manager tries to find out more details when the call ends. The protagonist is in a hurry because he knows that there is something wrong. Cha Sung was the first to leave FANF and go to Big Z. After that, he got into a car accident and left a farewell letter. Then actor Hyun was negotiating with ENF agency backstage and chose Big Z at the last minute. Now Jinju switched to FANF after 10 years and announced his transfer to Big Z. It was because of the actress' departure that FNF's stock price plummeted. The protagonist thinks that the most likely now is someone is using Jinju to harm the competitor and get a rebound, just like they did with him 5 years ago. But now it's different because the protagonist already knows how the industry works. And it has the most important help of all, the phone that reveals the future. Kang drives back home. Suddenly the phone rings. The protagonist answers Jung's call and asks if he has already made up his mind. Jung replies that he wants to make a deal. Kang realizes that the guy is freaking out because of the photos, but the actor says he knows he has something he wants, and that's why he dragged him to this movie. Kang gets out of the car while saying that he has already made it clear what his goal was. Jung thinks he is lying and tries to make a deal. He will pass on the information that Kang wants in exchange for the photos. The protagonist asks what information he has. Jung replies that he knows who ruined his career. Kang gives the address of his house and tells the actor to meet him tomorrow morning. Jung is afraid of go and be an ambush, then suggests a coffee shop or something. The protagonist asks if he really wants to be seen going out with a failed loser. Jung values his own image a lot, and Kang knew it. He arranged to meet at his house and hung up the call. The next day arrives. Jung arrives at Kang's address in disguise. Afraid of being recognized, he finds the place too unkempt for a nationally famous former actor to live in. Anyway, the guy goes up the stairs to Kang's door. He thought it couldn't get worse. But when the protagonist opened the door, Jung was sure that the interior was worse. Kang didn't have the slightest desire to clean the only room he lives in to receive the visit. The food packages are scattered all over the floor. Drink cans and even clothes are thrown. Jung thought the protagonist was going through difficulties, but he didn't imagine there were so many. The actor tries to walk around the room without stepping on that garbage. The protagonist told him to sit on the couch. But the cloth that covers the couch is already full of fungi. The actor takes off the cloth. He asks if the protagonist really lived here for 5 years. Kang says that now he understands the problem of false accusations. The actor will probably live the same situation when the photo leaks. Jung starts shaking just thinking about it and asks if the protagonist will want to close the deal. Kang pretends that he doesn't understand what he means. The actor gets angry and yells that it doesn't make sense for the protagonist to hand over the photo. If he makes the movie, it's an extremely strange condition. Jung adds that he hopes he doesn't release this photo. He feels that the protagonist is doing it for revenge, so the actor says that he will give information about who ruined Kang's career in exchange for the photo. The protagonist is direct and says that he must sign the contract. The only way to prevent that photo from being published is to record the film. The scene changes to the Bigsy agency building. A man in glasses signs the content planning for the second half of the year. This guy is the CEO of Bigsy. His name is Chan Q. Next to him is that guy named Sungmin that the protagonist had previously followed. He warns the CEO that the preparations for the actress's party are almost complete. Jinju joins the conversation. She finds it embarrassing to have a party to celebrate her 11 years as an actress. CEO Chan says that it is also a company event. Jinju says that it would be better to simply buy a cake at the nearby bakery and celebrate only among them. Chan replies that they need to show that Jinju has surpassed F. This will also attract more people to Bigsy, guaranteeing extra motivation for the team. Jinju laughs and asks if she is just a poster girl for Bigsy. The actress accuses the CEO of using this party as an excuse. Chan replies that it is not quite like that. He just wants to celebrate the first year of the actress's new jump. Jinju moves his face back with his hand and shouts that it is more likely that new investors will tear up the contracts. Sungmin chimes in and says that he thinks the idea of the party is great. That man was planning to sink Jinju and Bigsy into a single scandal. Meanwhile, at the protagonist's house, Jung asks if the only chance he has to prevent the photo from coming out is to shoot this movie. Kang asks if the guys read the script. The movie is good and Jung is a good actor. The protagonist reveals that he thought of other actors for the position, but the one who best manages to bring out the essence of checkmate is him. Jung is surprised. The protagonist adds that this is why the photo is non-negotiable. He needs Jung to be the actor of the film. In addition, he has a gift that he is sure will interest him. Jung feels that the protagonist is mocking his face. After all, he wants him to make a film without having any guarantees. Kang says he has something much bigger. He then warns Jung that it is better to urgently sell the shares he owns. The actor widened his eyes in disbelief, listening to the protagonist talk about the Sungshan pharmacy. He stutters, asking how Kang knows this. Jung questions how he knows about buying Sungshan shares. The protagonist takes the cell phone and shows that this news is already on all the panels. The guy looks at the comments and is in disbelief. He has no idea who spread this and tries to take the cell phone from Kang's hand. But the protagonist walks away and asks what is the problem with a celebrity buying some shares. Jung says that Sungshan is launching a very good drug, then asks if the protagonist is jealous of his business. Kang shows the bank account and asks if the guy really thinks he is jealous. The actor screams, surprised to see 1.5 billion in the protagonist's account. All this was thanks to the purchase of shares that Kang made in Sungshan. The guy asks how he does to have a return like this. The actor just doesn't understand how the protagonist can have so much money and still live in this dump. He asks if Kang is by any chance cosplaying as a beggar. The protagonist just replies that he is busy selling his shares. The actor looks closely and asks if he will actually sell the shares he bought from Sungchan. Kang replies that this afternoon a false problem with unwanted substances will arise in the company and destroy everything. At that moment he shows that he has sold everything. The actor wonders how an idiot can say something so seriously. The protagonist advises you to sell your shares quickly before it becomes useless. This was the information that Kang prepared to show that he can prevent the actor from getting hurt. Moreover, he asks Jung to make a reservation in the garden in Gangnam. The next day arrives. Chan receives a visit at the Bigsy agency's office. He reveals that he was surprised when they said that Jung wanted to talk to him, but he didn't know that in fact the one who would enter his office was the former actor Kang. The protagonist replies that he had to use Jung to contact the CEO directly. Kang also says that he was surprised by his recent bold investment. Hiring Jinju and Hyan is impressive. Chan agrees that he was bold and says that Bigsy wouldn't suit the protagonist during his prime. Kang notices the irony hidden in these kind words. It's subtly annoying. The CEO says he heard that Kang and Jinju were very close in the past. The protagonist replies that it seems that Chan has a lot of affection for the actress. The man says that he appreciates all the Big Z artists. The protagonist gets lost in his thoughts. He feels that Sungmin and that owner of the party venue are just pawns. There must be someone big behind them who wants to destroy Jinju's reputation, just like they did with him 5 years ago. But the protagonist also understands that he won't be able to figure it out on his own. The best thing to do is to approach someone trustworthy, but he's not sure if CEO Chan is that trustworthy person. The man asks him to get straight to the point and explain what he came here to do. Kang replies that he is curious as to why he took Jinju out of Fenf. The CEO hesitates to answer because he doesn't trust the protagonist either. Kang knows this and assumes that the man sees him as a failed thug trying to make a quick buck from some cheap gossip. Chan answers the question by saying that he brought Jinju because she is a strong girl, but that he was not knowing how to use his strength properly in Fenf. He realized this when she used all her strength to protect Kang from those accusations. The protagonist understands. The CEO adds that Jinju spent 10 years in that place, and he felt that the burden of helping everyone was weighing on the actress's shoulders. That's why he wanted to give her a new comfortable place to focus only on her work. The protagonist saw sincerity in the CEO's words. He questions if this is all the man has to say. Kang confesses that it is suspicious that Chan brought Jinju to Big Z just because the actress couldn't handle the stress. The CEO says that there is nothing strange about it. The protagonist goes straight to the point and shows a photo, then asks if the man knows this person from the photo. The CEO replies that this is the PR leader named Sungmin. Kang displays several photos of Sung, where the guy took some wines to Jinju's party venue and also visited the Fenf agency building. Sung was specially escorted by the Fenf guards, as if they were old acquaintances. The protagonist claims that Fenf wants to sabotage actress Jinju. There is reliable information that they will try to put hallucinogenic substances in Jinju's wine today. The CEO is desperate with the information and asks why the protagonist is only saying this now. The man asks for a minute to calm down, then asks how Kang intends to convince him that he is telling the truth. After all, he disappeared for 5 years and came back out of nowhere. The protagonist replies that the CEO doesn't need to believe him because he knows that Fenf is related to many scandals involving illegal things. In addition, recently Big Z have been recruiting big names. It is not unlikely that Fenf will be angry and try to sabotage the rival agency. If that happens, Big Z's stock will plummet. Chan realizes that the protagonist has studied each transfer meticulously. If he is right, Big Z will be ruined. At that moment, the CEO orders the secretary to call the party venue. The protagonist holds the man's hand and prevents him from talking to the secretary. Chan doesn't understand why the former actor is doing this. Kang says that he shouldn't interfere because this is an opportunity, a golden chance to discover the mastermind of the plan. The scene changes to later that night. The guests arrive at the party venue. The manager Ku was forced by the protagonist to attend the event. Suddenly, he receives a call and answers angrily. Kang asks if he has arrived and the manager says yes. The protagonist at this moment is accompanied by the CEO. He warns Chu, who has registered him as Jung's guest representative, then he can enter the party venue. Chan hears this and has a doubt in his head. He wonders how the protagonist managed to register a guest for his company's event, and no one notified him. This only proves that someone is not informing the CEO, as he should. At this moment, the protagonist steps on the accelerator and says that it is his turn to hunt. Meanwhile, at the Jinju event, the guests have their drinks and talk to each other. The manager tries to go unnoticed and tells the protagonist that he managed to get into the place. Now he wants to know what he should do. Kang asks his friend to look at the photo he sent and find the brand of that wine in the kitchen. The manager follows orders. He complains because there are many wines there and he doesn't know how to differentiate. The protagonist says he trusts him, but Chu says he can't find it because there is a whole collection. He checks the photos he sees several times and tries to find the wine. Suddenly, his eyes fall on a box near his feet where the same bag that appears in the photo is. He quickly tells the protagonist that he found it. Kang praises the good work and Chu asks what he should do now. Suddenly, a shadow appears behind him. A voice warns that this area is restricted for employees. Chu pretends not to understand and says that he is looking for the bathroom. The place is very complicated and he ended up getting lost. After saying this, the manager begins to leave the wine area. But at that moment, a man passes by him and catches his attention. The manager realizes that it is the leader Sungmin. Meanwhile, the protagonist is in the middle of a traffic jam. The hours are passing, and he realizes that it is getting late. If he continues like this, he will not arrive in time. At the arrive, and there's only 1 block left to reach Gangnam. The protagonist has an idea and asks the CEO if his legs are strong. The man is confused by the question, and Kang says that at this distance it is better to run. Chan says he was thinking the same and takes off his seatbelt. The protagonist says to wait a little and asks for a favor. He begs the CEO to keep this a secret from Jinju. Chan gets out of the car and says that he knows he will not reveal the reason for making this request, but agrees not to tell the actress. After that, he starts running between the cars. The scene changes to the manager, who follows. Sungmin steps and informs the protagonist that the man has just entered the kitchen. Kang asks his friend to concentrate, that wine in the photo will be served only to Jinju. That means he should stop her from drinking that glass. Chu asks confused why should he stop her from drinking the wine. The protagonist replies that there is no time for explanations. The manager replies that this is very suspicious and says that he just wants to know what's in that wine. Kang says that he needs to interfere anyway, but the man keeps asking the same thing. The protagonist finds no other way out and says that it is narcotics. The manager immediately shuts up. Kang says that Jinju will end up ruined like him. Chu suggests calling the police and the protagonist asks if he remembers the incident 5 years ago at Club G. A person in their group tested positive for narcotics. Kang was eventually acquitted, but just being in the same group as the person involved caused his fall to begin. The difference is that this time illegal substances will be found in the actress's drink and she will have no way out. She will end up like him. The manager is silent listening to this. Suddenly he curses the protagonist as an idiot and says that he is doing it wrong. Chu asks if Kang has he ever thought of him as family. The protagonist does not understand the reason for this question. The manager says that Kang sank alone because he didn't trust him. He didn't ask for help and he locked himself up alone during those 5 years. That's why he calls him an idiot. During the accusations, the protagonist actually tried to run away. The manager searched several times and tried to break into the rooms he thought Kang was in to try to help him, but it was no use and Kang isolated himself. Then Chu says that he is nothing more than an egocentric. The protagonist starts crying, remembering everything that happened, and apologizes to his friend. The manager says he is tired and goes to call the police. After that, he hangs up the call with the protagonist. The man starts to use his cell phone to contact the authorities when suddenly an employee passes by him pushing a table. Chu looks and notices the wine that the protagonist talked about. The manager hesitates for a moment. Meanwhile, Kang continues with his head resting on the steering wheel of the car. The driver honks at him to get out of the way as he is blocking the way. The protagonist quickly starts driving and tells himself that it is not time to stop. At that moment, the CEO runs through passersby and arrives at the party venue. Inside, the actress Jinju is applauded by the guests. She looks delighted at the size of the cake in front of her. Meanwhile, the manager tries to sneak past people. The actress is served with the altered wine. Chu was too far away to snatch that glass from her hand. Outside, the CEO calls someone and asks them to start investigations immediately. He gets desperate because he feels he has wasted too much time, so the man runs pushing passersby to clear the way. Deep down, the CEO is trusting the words of the protagonist that this is the perfect opportunity to expose the force that is trying to bring down the Bigsy and Jinju company. Kang also said that if they reported it, there would be a great risk of Bigsy being connected to the narcotics investigation team of the public prosecutor's office. At first, the CEO wanted to report the police, but Kang convinced him that this attitude would only give time for the person behind the plan to escape, so the goal would be to capture that person. The CEO agreed. The protagonist was sure he was going to get evidence to destroy the mentor. Chan realized the motivation in the boy, so he trusted him. At that moment inside the event, a man dressed in a suit asks for everyone's attention to the main star of the night, the actress Jinju, who is completing 11 years in this industry. The guests clap their hands. The actress's friend congratulates, while the leader Sungbin hopes that the plan will work. Outside, the men hired by the Bigsy company meet the CEO. He asks how things are going, and the head of security says that the plan is going well. The security team is recording every detail so as not to miss. No evidence. The event inside is being filmed from the beginning. The CEO says this is good and enters the residence. The actress takes the wine in her hand and speaks into the microphone with the guests. She makes some jokes saying that she is almost retiring and even comments that the CEO does not joke when he is talking about partying. The actress continues to say a few words about her career and about the Bigsy company. The manager leaves the audience. The CEO and the team invade the residence towards the main hall. The actress finishes her speech and says she will toast. Chu stops walking and turns her attention to the girl. The police who were called in advance also arrive at the scene and prepare to enter. At that moment, the manager is about to run to snatch the glass of wine from the actress's hand, but he is stopped by a hand that touches his shoulder and says that he is surprised at seeing him here. Jinju and the guests get ready to drink the wine. The manager runs towards her without thinking twice. He slams his hand on the glass and knocks everything over. People look at it without understanding what happened. Someone asks if it was an accident. Sungmin gets angry trying to understand who messed up the plan. Jinju is surprised to see Chu. He tries to divert attention from what he just did and says that it's been a long time since they saw each other. At that moment, Bigsy's security finally catches up with the girl. The boss advises the actress to accompany them now. She looks at the CEO without understanding anything and he says he'll tell the reason later. But now she has to go. The CEO takes the microphone from the actress's hand and says that he will explain the confusion to the other guests. The actress is taken away by the company's security guards Bigsy. Meanwhile, the manager looks for the person responsible for the wine. Sungmin realizes that he is being watched and starts to run away. Chu runs after him and yells for the man to stop. Sungmin breaks into the kitchen and spills the pot of soup on the floor to prevent Chu from reaching him. The manager slipped on the food and fell to the floor. The bandit takes advantage of the moment to escape. Chu continues to follow the man, and this time he is hit by boxes. Sungmin is sure he escaped, but outside the residence the protagonist was already expecting his escape and managed to stop the man. Kang throws Sungmin over his shoulder and knocks him to the ground. Chu is surprised by the unexpected attack. He laughs and says that he was wondering when the protagonist was going to appear. Kang replies that he came to accompany his manager. Minutes later, the police begin to handcuff those involved in the plan to ruin the Big Z company and the actress Jinju. Chu touches the protagonist's shoulder and says that this time it worked, then asks what he will do now. Kang replies that maybe movies. The man screams in surprise, asking if he is thinking of returning to the acting industry. The protagonist confirms and says that he is thinking of getting back together with his brother. Chu asks what he means. Meanwhile, the actress Jinju is sitting in a van, wondering what happened. Suddenly, she looks out the window and notices the protagonist. The next day arrives and the scene changes to the Big Z agency building. The CEO watched on television the Seoul Central District Prosecutor's Office announce that some people have been charged with violating the narcotics control law. One person stated that it was an individual crime. Chan gets angry hearing this. It seems that it will take some time to prove the involvement of Fenf. At that moment, someone knocks on the door and the man turns off the television. The actress enters the office and shows the headlines that came out about the incident at the event. She asks when he will tell what happened. The man realizes that there is no way to lie. He then tells her that yesterday at the party someone put illegal substances in his glass of wine. The girl is shocked. Chan tells her that the mastermind is Fenf. The actress thinks about what she just heard. The CEO reassures her, saying that they were able to prove that she was not involved, but Fenf planned to cause great damage to her image. Now Big Z will repay what they did. The CEO says that he gave the materials obtained to the police so that the truth could be revealed. The actress breaks the silence and says that her face is stamped on the headline of this newspaper. It is scary to think that the title could be different, where she would be incriminated. Jinju imagines what those crazy reporters would be like, wanting to accuse her of something she didn't do. The CEO feels guilty because he was the one who planned the celebration party. If this event didn't exist, maybe it wouldn't have given access to infiltrators. Jinju replies that she shouldn't apologize. After all, she already knew that the company wouldn't let her go so easily, but now she wants to know who was the person who saved her. The CEO hesitates for a moment. The actress starts crying and says that she is sure it was the protagonist. The scene changes to the production company movie truck. The protagonist tells the director that it is a pleasure to meet him. President Rong and director Choi are open-mouthed by the newcomers. In front of them is the protagonist, who introduces himself as an investor of actor Jung. As we can see, the actor is not very happy to have been dragged into this film. Kang tells director Choi that he was really in awe of the film's setting. The man doesn't even know how to thank him. The protagonist says that he called him here for a pre-meeting. Rong asks if he forgot that the investment failed. The protagonist touches Jung's shoulder and asks if this is enough to recoup his investment. Rong yells that it's more than enough. Kang then asks if the director is okay with that. Choi replies that the production cost is not small, and he doesn't understand why anyone would invest in him without guarantee. In addition, hiring an actor like Jung is a much higher level than he imagined. The protagonist says that everything is fine, and that the director doesn't have to worry because he will take responsibility. Ryung is surprised to hear Kang say that he will be the producer and investor of the project. He says that he understands the former actor taking responsibility for the production of the film Chuksol, but the production cost is too high. The protagonist remembers that the voice said that the production cost of the film would be 8.5 billion won. This also guarantees 9 million audience. At that moment, Kang replies that he will start investing 1 billion. Ryung's eyes widened in surprise and asked him not to make jokes. Usually large banks or medium-sized companies invest from 500 million to 1 billion won, but he's never seen a single individual invest 1 billion won. Jung says that it's no joke because he saw with his own eyes this guy's bank account. The protagonist increased his fortune thanks to the shares he bought. He starts to run out of patience when he realizes that Rong doesn't believe him. The man apologizes for doubting and justifies it by saying that he hasn't been thinking well lately. The protagonist agrees and asks when they will start. Rong says that it is necessary to hire the lead actress and the basic cast first. They can proceed with the crew and the detailed scheduling after the budget is decided. Jung mockingly says that he is sure that the lead actresses of this project are quite significant. Everyone is silent. The protagonist realizes that he forgot to look for an actress and is annoyed by this. The four think together of someone for the position of lead actress. Meanwhile, a woman climbs the stairs of the building. Jung suggests calling the actress Hyunju. The protagonist replies no, because the girl is about to start a drama. Jung thinks of Kim Ju-won, but Ryan doesn't think she's good for the movie and suggests actress Choi Sora, as he thinks she would be more suitable and her performance is up to par. The problem would only be the payment. The protagonist replies that the lead actress is the problem. Jung suggests having a separate meeting to choose the cast. At that moment, someone invades the room and says he is going to play this role. Everyone seems scared of the newcomer. Jinju takes off his glasses and greets the protagonist. The director and President Ryan can't close their mouths because they are so impressed. Jung angrily asks what she's doing here. The actress says she was interested in the movie Chucksoul. The protagonist says that she will not work with him, leaving the president and the director without understanding anything. The truth is that Kang would be willing to let her participate if it was not a guaranteed success. But he's already expecting 9 million viewers. Anyway, the protagonist dismisses the actress. He says that the main female role does not have much screen time, and using an important star spends a lot of money. She says they can talk about the value. Kang replies that having someone like Jinju in the cast is to make sure that investors will interfere to increase her screen time. The actress says she can take a supporting role and put a clause in the contract to ensure that screen time is not affected. The protagonist didn't expect her to go so far for a role. Ryan is looking forward to working with a star like Jinju. The actress asks the protagonist if he has any problems. Ryan responds for Kang saying that there is no problem at all. The protagonist really didn't want Jinju in the cast, but he couldn't do anything because there are other investors who would do anything to have the actress on the team. Jung can't stand the meeting anymore. After that day, the Chucksoul film production began to move quickly. Jung and Jinju signed the contracts. Jung's fees were 700 million won and Jinju's fees were 100 million. Ryan was in charge of hiring the film director. While the protagonist was still worried about Jinju and she realized it, after the contracts were signed, the production cost allocation began. The company's film truck budget was 8 billion with an additional 2 billion for marketing. It is likely that costs will increase during the process. But for now, the protagonist is confident that he will get 9 million viewers with a production cost of 8 billion. A few days later, director Choi completed the script revisions. The film had Choi's script, the production of the film truck company, and the protagonist's investment. At first, Jung did not want to attend the meetings, but later he got involved in the production process and took the position of cast leader. Jung did not want any film he participated in to be affected in terms of qualities, so as the main actor decided not to act sloppy. The protagonist was happy with the actor's effort. While everyone was focused on work, Kang received a new call from Voice Fishing, informing him that a new MMORPG would be a big hit abroad soon. The protagonist took the opportunity to buy some shares of the game company. He invested 3 billion. A few days later, the protagonist made a small change. The manager helped him take the boxes to the new office. Kang got a room near his rental room in the semi-basement. The name of the office is Voice Entertainment. After carrying several boxes, they take a break to eat. Kang says that all his beginnings had the help of Chu when he started acting, and now that he is starting this new business. The manager doesn't want to cry and tells the protagonist to stop talking this nonsense. Kang is about to respond when he is interrupted by a call. He answers, and on the other end of the line, the president says that something incredible happened. Everyone is crazy to invest in the movie, and he has already managed to schedule 5 meetings. The protagonist is happy. Ryan then gives the biggest news. One of the 3 largest national investment distribution companies wants to invest in them, the famous MV. The protagonist asks, surprised, if MV doesn't just make films by renowned directors. The director says that is exactly why the protagonist should prepare for this meeting. Chu listens to a little of the conversation and is happy that MV wants to invest in the project. Kang imagines that for a film with a guaranteed audience of 9 million audiences, now with the help of MV, it can even reach 15 million viewers. A little later that day, Kang and Ryan greet MV representatives, the first man being the head of the marketing team called Sungu. The second man is the head of the business division named Kim. Kim seems excited to close the deal with the movie truck. The protagonist notices a third man who hasn't come forward so far. This guy is a veteran actor named Hong. At that moment, Kim praises the synopsis and the actors, saying that the whole set of the movie are amazing. He says that he was happy when he realized that the actors were Jung and Jinju, so he makes some suggestions to use Kang's image as well. Director Ryan asks if they think this will work. Sungu replies that there is nothing that cannot be affected with the right marketing. The MV will have to endure some damage if the audience does not like Kang's appearance. At that moment, Hong starts coughing. It's a signal for Sungu to stop talking. President Ryan notices that the protagonist is not very comfortable. Hong goes back to drinking his coffee as if nothing had happened. Kim tries to draw attention to herself and says that complicated things can wait. Now it's better to focus on the investment. MV was interested in the production plan and casting supporting roles for secondary roles. Ryan already had all the answers prepared. The protagonist knows that when MV talks about investment, they will start to think they are part of the production and will try to influence the film to their liking. Kang was right and created a strategy to prevent investors from overstepping the limits. That's why he asked President Ryan to avoid some answers. For now, everything was under control, but the protagonist was bothered by one thing. MV so far hasn't said a word to him. It was as if Kang wasn't there. He was totally ignored. Suddenly, Hong coughs once again and Sungu understands what he should do. He writes some notes on the paper and gives it to President Rong. Kim said that he had previously said that he was a little greedy, so he thought better that MV could ease the burden of the president and cover the entire investment of the film. So MV win to invest 7 billion. Ryong asks if MV wants to invest alone. On the other hand, Kang has the feeling that they are doing this because of Hong. At that moment, Ryong tries to escape the answer and says that he will analyze the proposal positively. Kim interrupts him and says that maybe the president did not understand. He is not asking for an evaluation of his proposal. MV is already prepared to invest. The protagonist notices the man's threatening tone and feels that they are trying to intimidate the film truck production company into selling the project. Kim said that originally MV was thinking of investing in director Bong's new film that won the grand prize at the film festival last year, but changed her mind after seeing Chuxel. Ryong is surprised and asks if MV really changed director Bong for them. Kang thinks this is a big joke. It's easier that MV was rejected by Enrollment because he didn't accept Hong's participation in the project. Probably MV wants to invest in something with low production cost and with protagonist as an investor, because it has more chances of going wrong since Kang has suffered several accusations. The protagonist believes that this way they plan to use him as a scapegoat for something. Kim says that if director Ryong doesn't want to close a deal, they will be forced to work with Bong. The guy laughs, saying that maybe it's not good for the big Bong and the director of Chuxal to face each other. Kang realizes that that guy doesn't leave the threatening tone of voice aside. Probably if the film truck production company refuses, Miva will block the screens of the distribution network. The protagonist remembers something and asks if director Choi didn't work with Bong. Ryan replies that he did. Choi worked as an assistant director for 7 years. Kang finally understands what MV is trying to do. They must have even prepared a headline commenting on the clash between Bong and Choi. It's very smart for a company to plan to fill the news with articles about the rivalry between master and disciple, probably. Aiming to shake Choi's mental health, refusing the MV's offer is practically accepting that the Chuxel will be ruined. The protagonist tells himself that he can't be dragged into this. At that moment, Kim asks Ryan to answer his proposal. Kang interrupts him and says he has a question. Kim and Sungu look surprised when the protagonist asks what Hong is doing here. Sungu makes up an excuse saying that he had to bring the actor because it was almost lunchtime. Kang hates the answer, so he is direct and asks if Hong is affiliated with MV. No one answers. The protagonist laughs and comes to the conclusion that the actor wants to clean up his image after driving drunk and having his career ruined. Kim tries to say that this is not it, but Kang replies that he knows that Hong ran over 2 people after driving totally out of his mind. The first victim unfortunately did not resist and the other was in serious condition. Now Hong is trying to use the film to rebuild the bad reputation. Hong laughs and says that this is impressive. He hoped that someone like Kang would try to understand him since he was in a similar situation. The protagonist replies that they are not on the same side. His accusations were rumors, but Hong really committed a crime. An awkward silence hangs over them. Suddenly, Sungu slams his hand on the table, saying that the protagonist is going too far with an old man. Hong also gets up from the table and says he's leaving. Kang questions if he didn't come here to have a meal. The retired actor gets angry and curses the protagonist as a brat. Kim says he's sure Kang doesn't want to fight and makes the proposal to work together again. The protagonist thinks it's funny. Kim hands over the contract and asks Ryan to think it through. It would be sad for both sides if it didn't work out. After saying that the MV representatives leave, Ryan finally breathes a sigh of relief and asks if Kang wasn't too harsh. The protagonist replies that he just returned the threat, but it's better to talk about it another time because this mess made me hungry. The director is silent. Later that day, the scene changes to the production company movie truck. Ryan asks Kang to think about it. 7 billion won in investment and partnership with such a big company. It's not every day that something like this happens. Plus, he thinks that the fact that MV wants to put actor Hong in the project is a common practice that companies do. Ryan wants to know what's wrong with cleaning up Hong's image. The protagonist replies that he needs to know the reason why the company is trying to help Hong in the first place. The president asks if he doesn't know that the deputy head of MV is the brother of the retired actor. This means that refusing Hong's participation is accepting to be MV's rival. The protagonist is silent. Ryan takes a deep breath and says that this is frustrating. At that moment, Kang's phone rings and he says he needs to go. The president tries to stop him in vain. The protagonist distances himself, knowing that no one will hear and answers the call. On the other end of the line, the voice reveals that he brought information of another scandal, this time about a case of harassment in the entertainment industry. The revelation is from a rookie actress. She revealed that she was physically harassed by veteran actor Hong for 3 years during her intern days. This revelation will lead to the exposure of the crimes of many other famous veteran actors. The protagonist is surprised, because he didn't think Hong was so trash like that. 30 minutes later, the protagonist returns to the office. Rong scolds him for leaving him here waiting to answer a call on the phone. Kang interrupts him and says that it might be better to sign a contract with MV's rival, the VIP company. The protagonist says he will send a proposal to VIP and accept the investment for only 10%. Ryong asks if he is crazy. 10% is too little for the production of the film. Kang uses the serious tone of voice to say that a scandal about actor Hong will break out soon, so it is more comfortable to stop receiving 7 billion won from the MV company than to relate to them. Ryong asks what the scandal and the protagonist are. Responds that Hong hides something more serious than just the drunk driving incident. He will be accused of pestering his intern. Ryong is shocked by the revelation. The protagonist adds that it lasted for 3 years. Soon everyone will be communicated, and if Hong is involved during the filming of Chukseol, they will be ruined again. Ryong agrees that he can't work with someone like that and asks how the protagonist knows about this revelation. Kang replies that he worked 13 years in the industry and has his contacts. After that call, the protagonist understood that other famous veteran actors had also committed similar crimes, so he decides not to hire any veteran for the role. Ryong agrees that it will be problematic to have Hong on the team, but he didn't want to give up MV because the company was willing to invest 7 billion. The man says that he believes the protagonist can make a good casting of actors, but at the moment they need money. It takes at least 3 billion won to start the film. Kang understands the director's concern, because 3 billion is a heavy burden, even for him. That's why he invested in the release of the new MMORPG game called 13 Heroes from developer Endgames. Currently, the share price of Endgames has quadrupled. The protagonist's current net worth is 3.8 billion won. He takes a deep breath and says that he is the main investor in Chukseol, so the president should not worry. Rong shouts in surprise, asking if he will take 3 billion out of his own pocket. Kang replies that yes, they will release Chukseol without the help of those useless ones from the MV. The director is now more excited and asks if the boy wants to use all the unknown actors for the supporting roles. The protagonist asks if there are too many middle-aged characters in the script. Ryong replies yes. Kang asks if he really wants any veteran actor to play the role. If this happens, both director Choi and his production company will be ruined. The actors will be harmed and Ryong will go bankrupt. The man asks the protagonist to stop saying this, but Kang reaffirms that the industry will be very affected when the scandal spreads. They need to find a way not to fall like dominoes like other movies. Ryong understands where the boy wants to go. The protagonist confirms that the film will star rookie actors, with only Jung and Jinju as well-known actors. A few hours after the meeting with President Ryong ends, the protagonist has scheduled to visit someone important. On the way, his phone rings, and he answers the unknown number. On the other end of the line is actor Hong. Being massaged by female hands, Hong introduces himself and says he is bad news. Kang asks what he wants. The retired actor replies that he found out that the film truck production company turned down MV's offer. He asks how a small company like the movie truck rejects 7 billion won. Kang gets out of the car and says on the phone that it is better for the actor to hire a tutor. Hong is annoyed by these words and calls him arrogant. He tries to threaten the protagonist by saying that he has controlled the direction of the film academy for quite a while, and his disciples occupy key positions in the entire film industry. This means that Kang will not get away with it. Hong even says that he must prepare himself because he will be crushed soon. The protagonist assumes that the actor is planning to use director Bong's film to harm him. Then he says he's anxious. After that, Kang hangs up the call and walks towards a building, then knocks on the door and says it's been a while since he last visited his friend. Director Bong waits for the guest to come in. Kang thanks him for taking some time despite his busy schedule. Bong says he's happy to see him well after so many years and asks what the urgency is. The protagonist goes straight to the point and says that he heard rumors that he was discussing a film with MV. Bong asks if it was Kim who said that he refused the partnership as soon as it came up. The protagonist replies that he knows. The point is that MV will offer better conditions to close the contract. That's why he came here in advance to tell about a bad rumor involving actor Hong. Bong interrupts him and asks if it was Kang who discovered director Choi. The protagonist finds this question strange and replies yes. Bong asks what he saw in Choi to support him. Kang replies that the director's script was well crafted enough to make him want to film immediately. The atmosphere of the film set is also good and cozy, so he thought it would be good to transmit this energy to a bigger stage. Bong thanks him and the protagonist is confused. The director says he is happy that Choi's talent is being recognized. He also has an important principle, and that's why he doesn't think about partnering with the MV. On his set, it is important that everyone feels proud and is fully engaged, so he will not accept anything from MV. In addition, he does not want any conflict with Choi. The protagonist thanks him and prepares to leave. Bong asks him to wait a while, and soon asks if Kang is thinking of returning to acting. The protagonist replies with a smile on his face that he does not intend to. A few days pass and Kang is walking through the streets of Daehan-no City. He talks on the phone with President Ryan and asks him not to tell him about the MV suggestion for the main actors. He needs Jung and Jinju to focus only on the script. In addition, the protagonist is thinking of fixing some things in the script. Ryan is surprised. The protagonist didn't realize before because he was always in the main role, but now he wants to give the complete script to everyone, from the secondary roles to the entire cast, without partial scripts. The protagonist says that the entire cast should be proud of the work together. Ryong says that this is very good and warns that today, the leader Jung will be on the set. Suddenly, the protagonist stops listening to the director, because his attention is directed to a man who appears in front of him. The man signals that the small theater is free. Kang thanks him and accompanies him. The protagonist traveled a few days between the neighboring cities because he wanted completely new actors, instead of renowned veterans. That's why he visited some theaters where the actors performed small performances. Kang sat in the chair and carefully watched each actor perform. He expected actors with good breathing, emotion, and delivery of lines. Among the actors, he found some people boldly in front of various employees and cameras. Kang was happy to find so much talent in the theatrical scene. In a few days, the protagonist offered auditions for 20 people. The head of the theater thanked him for the choice, but Kang said that all this was thanks to Jung's good eyes. At that moment, the journalist on television begins to talk about the MMORPG game called 13 Heroes. It seems that NGames is involved in a controversy about preferential enrichment in a large-scale event. Now, a game exclusion movement has gained strength among foreign users. This has caused the NGames share price to plummet. The head of the theater notices the protagonist's interest and asks if he likes games. Kang replies that he has invested his entire fortune in it. The man screams in surprise, asking what he did. The protagonist trusted the voice phishing information, and thanks to the last call, sold everything yesterday. The head of the theater breathes relief to hear that he sold everything yesterday. Kang's current net worth is 4.3 billion. A few minutes later, the protagonist receives another call from the voice phishing. He wanted it to be about investments. Kang chooses the time 5 in the morning. The voice says that it is a great choice and says that at 5 in the morning the corpse of the rookie actress Hayoung was found. She denounced the harassment she suffered from Hong and received thousands of malicious comments and threatening calls. Hayoung's mental and physical state deteriorated to such an extent that normal life became unbearable. The protagonist is surprised when he realizes that it was Hayoung who denounced Hong. At that moment, Kang remembers that the voice did not give any information saying that Hong would be ruined. This can only mean that someone wants to cover up the revelation of an unknown and powerless rookie, making it seem like the murder was the victim's own choice. The protagonist decides that he will not let it happen because Hong will continue to make victims if he remains in the industry. In addition, the actor's next declared target is Kang. At the end of the night, the protagonist returns home and tries to gather his thoughts. He writes in the notebook all the information he received about the actor Hong. His head hurts just thinking about the huge problem ahead. All plans will be in vain if he can't protect Hayoung, but he doesn't even know what the moment of revelation is. Kang does some research on the rookie actress and notices a familiar thing. She is also part of the FENF agency. The next day, Jinju arrives undercover at the voice office and ends up scaring the manager. Chu complains about the girl arriving like that. Jinju defends herself by saying that she was working out before coming. She sits on the couch next to Chu and asks what happened to Hayoung. The protagonist imagined that he could make Hayoung uncomfortable if he tried to get close to her. After all, the girl was harassed by a man, so he decided to tell Jinju the situation because she is a woman and was also part of the FENF. The protagonist is straightforward and tells what happened. Jinju clenches his fist and starts cursing Hong. The words need to be censored. The girl feels guilty for not having noticed anything. Hayoung dreamed of being an actress from a very young age. The circumstances were difficult, and she worked part-time while balancing her participation in the drama club. The girl stood her ground, even when her mother passed away before the premiere. She only managed to gain recognition when Hong noticed her. Jinju starts screaming that he is a disgusting old man. The protagonist says that they should bury that guy in the film industry, but Jinju thinks that this is too little. Kang says that they should know what Hayoung's own will is. Jinju asks if he is saying that he wants to meet the actress. The scene changes to a while later. Kang talks outside the voice office with Chu. The manager asks how the wine investigation is going. The protagonist replies that he is receiving some reports, but nothing has been confirmed so far. The manager asks what he will do if the actress Hayoung does not want to talk. It must be difficult for her to talk about something like this. The protagonist remembers that the voice said that the revelation will be made hastily by the actress. The problem now is to find out in advance the extreme decision. At that moment, Jinju sends a text message saying that the conversation is over. The protagonist enters the apartment and finds Jinju trying to console Hayoung. The girl widens her eyes when she sees the newcomer. Kang says it's a pleasure to meet her. Hayoung trembles as she holds the cup of coffee. The protagonist didn't imagine she was so bad. Hayoung looked infinitely bright and healthy in her profile. At that moment, Kang puts the voice office card on the table and tries to talk to her, but Hayoung has a flashback to when Hong did the same. The protagonist notices the fear in the girl's eyes and apologizes. He just wanted to help discreetly. Hayoung replies that they all say the same thing. They always say they want to help. The girl accuses the protagonist of being just like them because he was also involved in several scandals. The scene changes to a few hours ago when Kang and Jinju talked in the voice office before seeing Hayoung. Jinju says that the rookie actress can't trust anyone. She learned that Hayoung talked to FNF's superiors, and her contract was terminated 1 month ago. The protagonist is surprised the agency is still on the girl's profile. Jinju replies that this is because it hasn't been updated yet. M found out about what Hong did and covered it up. At that moment, the protagonist finally finds the cause of the extreme decision. It turns out that MV, FNF, and even the media will ignore and consider Hayoung a shameless woman. Even though the actress was victim, they intend to erase their revelation without leaving a trace. They will probably manipulate public opinion too, just like they did with Kang 5 years ago. The protagonist tells himself that he can't let this continue. The scene goes back to the present moment. Jinju says that the girl can't accuse the protagonist of something that the media invented 5 years ago. Suddenly, Kang enters the conversation and says that he is that person. In this industry, if someone like Hong has you as a target, then it's easy to turn him into the person they want and stamp the headlines with his face. The audience will side with Hong and the big industry. Kang says he understands that Hayoung doesn't trust him, but maybe he can trust the future. The protagonist takes a coin out of his pocket and asks her to let him ask a question. If it comes up heads, if it comes up tails, he will reveal a past of his that no one knows. The protagonist asks only for a chance and promises not to bother anymore. Hayoung thinks for a few seconds and agrees, but asks him to really leave her alone after that. Kang throws the coin up. The coin spins several times in the air and the two look carefully. The protagonist just wants the opportunity to open Hayoung's heart. At that moment, the coin comes back and Kang catches it in the air. Hayoung looks curiously at the result. The protagonist realizes that he got heads, so he flips the coin before putting it on the table and shows that he gave it tails. Kang says that it is not his lucky day. He picks up the phone to reveal what no one knows. The girl looks scared at a photo of the garbage dump of the protagonist's house. He reveals that he lived in this place with this mess for 5 years, and recently thought that maybe there was no reason to stay alive. Hayoung is surprised. The protagonist keeps saying that he thought he had no one to trust and nothing he could do would change that. But when he left home, he realized that there were people waiting for him. 5 years later, the world went on the same way. Only he had stopped. The scoundrels who caused his decline focused on other victims. This made the protagonist have a goal: to overthrow Hong. Hayoung says that this has nothing to do with her. The protagonist explains that the same thing can happen to her. Hong will use all his connections, including the media and FEF, to wipe out anyone who blocks his path. This means that Hayoung will be isolated just like him. Kang adds that he came to help her because he doesn't want her life to be ruined. He also wants to destroy these scoundrels before other people are harmed. A silence hangs over them. Hayoung asks what was the question he was going to ask if this guy. Kang gives a satisfied smile when he realizes that he got what he wanted. According to the voice, the bad relationship started 3 years ago when Hayoung enrolled in the film academy. Hong used the acting classes as an excuse. He started touching her and demanded private meetings. Hayoung left the gym, and even so, that old man was persistent, sending several text messages. Since then, the girl began to be threatened. Hayoung reported some of these situations and started crying. Jinju consoled her, saying that she was not to blame. The protagonist remembers that the voice said that Hong was not alone. Probably other unknown newbies are constantly trampled without being able to make any sound for fear of these veterans. The protagonist then says that he is ready to take down Hong and asks if Hayoung wants to go back to acting. The girl freezes in place when she hears this. She remembers that the protagonist said that Hong will use everything in his power to make things worse. Then Hayoung fears that Kang will also be ruined for helping her. At that moment, the girl says that she needs to go and leaves the protagonist's office. Jinju tries to stop her. The manager enters the office after seeing the girls running and asks if all this was caused by that demon Hong. Chu notices that the protagonist looks angry and suggests going to a restaurant to eat something. Suddenly, Kang asks what he just said, and the manager replies, "Who said restaurant?" The protagonist asks what he said before that. Chu remembers that he called Hong a demon. Kang slams his hand on the table and says that's it. He runs out of the office saying that he will meet the manager later. The protagonist realized that Hayoung was right. There is no way to change the future alone. The opponent is Hong and his entire gang. To catch a demon, you have to team up with another demon. At that moment, the protagonist accelerates the car towards the home of the demon that destroyed his life, Reporter Park. The scene changes to later that night. Kang arrives at a bar where the reporter is already waiting for him, finding that man is bringing his trauma back. At that moment, Park looks at him and mockingly asks if he is the national star of South Korea. The protagonist sees that he has not changed anything. The reporter says that he was impressed to find him after 5 years with information about Han. Kang replies that he sought him out because he is #1 in ruining people's lives. After all, that's what Park did to him. The reporter really dedicated himself to destroying Kang's image. The situation exploded due to national and international news talking about the false accusation simultaneously, but it was Park who sold the false news. That's why he's known as the journalist who sells his soul for money. That article that Hyung commented on was also Park's work. In this industry, he's called the Devil's Reporter. Park replies that this is nonsense because he wasn't the only one who wrote about it. Kang replies that everyone was inspired by his article. Park contradicts himself several times, trying to say that he was not to blame. But the protagonist says that he doesn't care about that work garbage. He just wants the reporter to write something so that Hong is no longer seen as human. Park replies that he doesn't want to be the demon who hurts people. Kang says that this time he will be the savior. Then it will briefly explain why it knows that the reporter is good at understanding things. As soon as the Hong bomb falls, it will explode in several places. All the films with problematic actors will be annulled. A dark storm will take over the industry. This is when the reporter will have a chance to do an article that will become sacred ground. Saving children and getting views. His image as a journalist will be cleaned up after that. So the protagonist asks what he thinks. The man takes a sip of the drink. Kang says he counts on him to destroy Hong and will send all the information when the time comes. After saying that, the protagonist leaves. Park smiles when she realizes that that child has returned after 5 years, determined to destroy the industry. The next day arrives. Bigsy's CEO receives Jinju in his office. The girl goes over the protagonist's plan and waits for Bigsy to help spread the information. CEO Chan asks for a minute and asks what his agency is. Jinju replies that it is Bigsy. The CEO then questions why she looks like the protagonist's spokesperson. The actress replies that she is trying to harm Femf too. After all, that agency trash covered up Hong's crime and expelled Hyung. If Hong is hit, Femf will be too. She also wants to repay the wine case. The CEO asks if this is Kang's idea. Jinju is silent. He says he doesn't believe that boy managed to seduce the Bigsy star. The actress shouts that she was not seduced. Chan says that Kang is not entirely wrong. This is the means of paying the wine debt. He is about to speak his decision when the actress gets up. She says that she knows that the CEO will make the right decision, so she will meet him later. Chan shouts, asking if she will abandon the agency again. He says that it is easier for her to take the clothes and go live there. Jinju leaves the poor man talking to himself. The scene changes to a house in the suburbs. Hyung's sister checks if she's okay and says she's going to work part-time. Hyung doesn't answer. The sister asks if everything is okay. She says she received the money from yesterday's work and can pay the hospital bills. Hyung replies that she's just tired. The sister is a little more relieved hearing this and says that it is to send a text message if something happens. The sister warns her about the dinner that is prepared and remembers that she saw an email from a company, then asks Hyung to respond when she can. After that, the sister leaves and Hyung looks for the food. For now, she thinks she can find other jobs that don't involve being an actress. Hyung feels that she needs to find a job as soon as possible to be able to send her sister to college. The girl starts eating dinner. Suddenly, she remembers the question the protagonist asked about returning to acting. Hyung can't hold back her tears. She cries when she looks at a content certificate from the Finf agency and asks if this is the end of her.